Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero. We're going to have some fans of cinema listening to the show today, and I want to acknowledge the passing yesterday of one of the greats of our generation, John Singleton. He was a pioneer whose debut, Boys in the Hood, earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Director, making him the first African-American and the youngest nominee to earn a nod in that category. He was important to new voices getting a chance to represent in the studio system and to setting the bar for what it took to take the helm. And we'll miss his work and his presence in the business. Gone way too soon. Rest in peace, John Singleton. One of the great things about doing this show is all the interesting and inspiring people we get to meet, and one of my very favorites among them is our guest today, Todd Nunes. Pete grew up with Todd, but I did not have the pleasure. So it's been great to get to know him since. He's a creative force of a filmmaker, and he's been doing it on his own terms throughout his entire career. Pete and Pete sat down with him to talk about his newest film, Death Ward 13, and I get the feeling Pete Koch feels the same way about Todd that I do. Not enough great guys like him with a genuine passion for the fun of making movies. Our longtime listeners already love Todd from episodes 61, 116, 175, and there must be at least one or two more. And if you're new to the show, and if you love movies, especially horror movies, especially independent movies, or if you just love independence and adventure and making things happen through sheer tenacity, creativity, and resourcefulness, you're going to love our guest today. We sure love him. He's our homeboy, Todd Nunes.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Morata.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Todd Nunes, director of All Through the House, and I'm here on the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yes, you are. Yeah, Todd, for those of you guys that know already and you've listened to the show, Todd and I grew up together.
Yes,
His
we did.
sister's been a guest. Todd's been a guest. And I felt like we needed to do an update. And so I grabbed Pete Koch to sit with me here. He's co-hosting. We're actually at his favorite place. When you hear the background noise, it's because we're at Q's on Wilshire because it's fun here. And we've been doing pre-show stuff for like 25 minutes, and it's always fascinating hearing you talk, Todd. But also because of Pete's specific knowledge on the industry, and you guys just cross-talking, it's just there's so much that goes into making a movie. It's incredible. Like the last time you were on, you were trying to get Ward 13 made, and it was like, we're going to get this thing produced, but then life gets in the way. Court happens, negotiations, and you got 15 people giving you money to make a movie. There's 15 people you got to manage. It's crazy.
And we love all 15 of them.
Of course. But it does create production challenges, and you also have another project in the future.
Everybody's on their own schedule.
Yes. So you're also directing the external movie as well as the internal movie.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
What is that like, though? I mean, how do you learn how to do that part, managing the project?
For one thing, I think it comes down to, first of all, it's passion. It's having absolute passion for it and being ready and able to jump into all aspects of what's going on and caring about each little aspect to make sure that, that this is going to go off just fine. And if it doesn't, I've got plan B. Yeah. And plan B has got to take just as much energy because most of the time you're going to resort to plan B. And you better have an idea of a plan C.
Yes.
So as long as my plan A is great and wonderful and my plan B is just as great and wonderful, and I've got an idea about plan C, then I'm good. But I think each and every aspect, you have to take it with that and be excited about it.
Where does the passion, what's the genesis of the passion? How old were you? How did that start? When were you interested and thought, man, I'd like to be a filmmaker. I could do this.
I think that it's something that I've always wanted to do ever since I was a little kid. Always. Like whenever we would have
goal.
My parents would have get-togethers or whatever. I would get the kids and say, we're going to do a play, and it's going to be amazing.
This is 1,000% true.
And everybody's going to want to see it. And that was just it was in my blood. And so everything built from there.
we've covered this, but I love to say this. Like, you didn't even know you wanted to be an actor. Like, if you were at our school, Pete, all of a sudden Todd would approach you and be like, "You're going to be in my play." Like, you didn't have a choice. You were going to be. You already had the role picked out. You had already auditioned without even knowing it, and he willed kids that didn't want to do things into doing these creative things, giving their spare time. You know, we would be on the stage like during lunch after school, and he would be producing plays all the time.
I had to sell it, but I had to have specific students if I wanted other students to come see the play. I couldn't pick just anybody. They had to be students who had friends.
So you were directing plays, and what was there the filmmaking? Did that start around the same time?
Well, yeah, I was like one of the first kids with a video camera, and that was like a big deal because like only families had like the family video camera. Like I had my own video camera, and I started doing movies from that. But it was a stage that led me to that. I was doing other people's stuff, and eventually I decided that I wanted to do my own, and I was like, well, I'm going to write my own horror play and cast everybody and do my own thing. And then from that's when I really discovered, wow, that's what I love. That's what I want to do. And so that was a beautiful relationship started.
From that point, what happens after high school? What's next? How do you continue this dream?
Well, you after high school, you then get to realize the horror and the letdowns and the rejection and all these beautiful things that come along with it until you realize that you have to do it yourself. You know, if your father isn't Steven Spielberg or whatever, it's going to be a little bit harder to break into. But I realized that, again, like I did in high school, I would have to do it myself.
When you start to do it yourself, there's 1,000 things that you don't know. Who was your mentor, or describe who your mentor was? I suppose we don't have to put them on the spot, but surely you had people guide you and shepherd you down this complicated path.
Yeah, I did. One of my good friends, Steve Redmond, would be my mentor.
And you guys still work together today?
Yeah, we still work together now. Yeah, absolutely. So now, hopefully I've gotten to a point to where I'm going to be able to help him do the things that he wanted to do, because we were able to elevate what he was doing through the house. And so now it sort of comes back around. And now he's going to be able to do his own film, direct his own movie that he's been wanting to do for years and years and years. And so I couldn't be more excited for that.
Yeah.
And to see him be able to make his dreams come true as well.
When you walk into a bar and you see Pete Koch, who's going to play a monster in a movie potentially coming up here. He played the Swede in Heartbreak.
Absolutely,
He plays this huge. Have you already said, that guy, I could use that guy? Is your director brain already switched on?
As you can hear from the crowd, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, my mind went there. I'm like, I'm thinking, like I've got this project. I've got another big project coming up that takes place out in the woods. So you could see this guy out in the woods, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, my mind did go there.
And you're always collecting sights and locations too.
Always, and shots.
Yeah.
Like I could be walking down the steps and I just see a shot with the trees, and it's like, and that's the way my mind works. Yeah. When I see somebody sitting there and the light is hitting them just a certain way, my mind is calculating and going like, I got to remember that. That's a great shot.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've had the great fortune over the last 10 years to work and develop a friendship with Benicio del Toro, the Academy Award-winning actor. And
that guy.
He catalogs. You catalog shots in your mind. He catalogs human behavior.
Interesting.
In his mind.
Yeah.
Like he has said to me, we've been driving down the street, and he'll go, look at that guy over there. Look at the way he's walking. Just look at looks like he has maybe some kind of an odd back problem, or with his foot is twisted in, and it's incredible. And that's it. That's it. He just picks up on it. I don't know. It goes in his head someplace.
Yeah.
Because he for him the preparation is all about what leads to his performance. But I have seen him countless times observe people. Not always, but sometimes he points it out to me, and I've picked up on that, and I find it fascinating. It's a good reference.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So you do a similar thing when you're trying to direct people who maybe don't have a Benicio del Toro kind of catalog. Are you, because you're part acting coach too? you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So when does your job stop? Like, when do you, because of where you're at right now in your career, you can't have 500 people on your crew
Yeah.
doing these things for you.
Yeah.
How many hats do you wear, and how quickly? What are the first hats you want to get rid of as you go to the next level and the next level?
Well, we were talking about having a first, which is, that's like a dream. That's a privilege, for where I come from. But it also is it's going to take your film to another level. Each person that hat that you feel where the hat is really being filled properly is going to take your film to the next level. And that's why you want to surround yourself with capable and talented people, because
Right.
it reflects on you. It's going to reflect on you and give you more to work with.
When you're trying to find the things to work with and you have people that do those things, I suppose also you could find someone like, let's say that you're a good acting coach, but you might find a brilliant acting coach. You're like, thank God I don't have to do that, and they're going to do it better, right? Because you want to collect people that are better at these things than you are. Is that right?
Yeah, but I don't know if I would go with an acting coach or whatever. I think
Okay.
that's something that I personally would want in my own hands.
Okay. Why?
Because I have a certain I want the story to progress in a certain way on film, and that's going to involve the performance of the actor. So I'm certainly going to want to be there. Now, I don't want to sit there and micromanage their entire performance, because I want a natural sense of the character to come through from what they are saying. But I definitely want to direct the movie. So I want to direct the performances into a certain direction.
Is this something that, look, in a perfect world? Is this something that you would schedule in some rehearsal time before you get in front of the camera?
Well, I definitely would love to do that, but it depends on the actor, how much they want to give. It depends on their career, where they're at. We have some names, so I certainly wouldn't be asking them to have rehearsal time unless that was something that they really wanted to do. But a lot of the younger actors are more than willing. The newer actors, the ones who want that chance, regardless of their age, are really willing and able, and they want to go that extra mile. And that, of course, I mean, you want to go along for that ride. You want to be there for that, because, whatever anybody wants to give you more of, I'm all for it.
Go ahead.
Short films. Then you're progressing with kind of this linear progression, and you dropped your first short film. Did you find a landing? Where was the landing place for that? Was it YouTube or Vimeo?
Well, the very first short film that I did was called Two Brothers, and that went to festivals. So I got that into festivals, and I did really well with that one. The other ones, Here Comes Santa, was just sort of a testing short. It was just for the bigger film that would come. So that was just sort of to test it and see what people thought.
And did you use that as a tool, a presentation for potential investors?
That was what it was for, but it ended up that the film I did before Scary Larry was the one that I used to get the job. Even though I had sort of, I'd done Here Comes Santa for that purpose, I was able to use the whole feature film eventually is what happened.
When you go through this process and you look back and you talk to 22-year-old Todd, and you're like, by the way, this is going to suck for a real long time. It's going to be hard and impossible. But you are going to get to this point where you have a movie that not only is shown and done very well in the U.S., but in many languages around the world. What does that Todd think about you now telling him that story?
Wow. I mean, it's really weird because you always go back and you think, well, if I knew now what I knew then,
Yeah.
There was a big chunk of my life got cut away for about 10 years.
Yeah.
One day I was taken out. Was in the hospitalized. I had to learn to walk again. I had to start over completely. I went through a severe depression, and it was getting back into this that got me out of that. That got me back up again. That got me going again. But yeah, so I don't know what I would say, because this thing was going to happen to me, and I was going to have to start over. So it was a big moment, but it was almost, wow, was this the moment that did it for me though? Was that the moment that really said, you know what, I don't really care anymore. I'm just going to jump in and do it now. And that released the fear and the anxiety and all these things. And now I don't have any of that anymore. Yeah. So it's interesting.
All Through the House.
Yeah.
And that's the film that you hang your hat on at this point in your directing and writing career. And, you know, in discussion with you before we started this program, I have to say I was not aware of the level, the magnitude of the following that this film has, and that's got to be very rewarding for you. Tell us a little about how that film came to be, and then I'd love for you to spin off into tell us a little bit about how your fans and you connect, and how people can find you and connect to that film.
Yeah, well, you know, All Through the House, I've always had the fascination with like a killer Santa Claus. As a kid, I just felt there was this scary feeling of Santa. Like he comes into your house at night. He's this, when I would sit on his lap, I would get this kind of creepy feeling, like something wasn't right. And so it's always sort of stuck with me. And even when I was in high school, I did a play about a killer Santa Claus that I had written and directed. And I was very influenced by the poster of Silent Night, Deadly Night. I couldn't see the movie because I was too young, but it was that poster that stuck with me. And that poster was not really what the movie was about, but that poster really is sort of what my movie is about.
Yes.
You know, everything that was sort of with me, that stuck with me through that and influenced me. And it was just something in me. I was like, you know what? I got to get this out of the way so that I can move on to other things.
And this is an original screenplay?
Yes.
And so what was the process there? How long did it take you to write it? Was it easy, or did it flow?
It was that for All Through the House, it was pretty easy. It was because I love slasher movies. I love the 80s. I've had this sort of concept in me for a real long time. So it's sort of just it was pretty easy to write. Now the one I'm writing now, Death War 13, that was a little bit more intricate. It's a little bit more sophisticated. It's got a lot of other qualities and avenues and feels, and so that was a bit more challenging. But All Through the House was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do from the very first start. All
Through the House is 88 minutes, and that fits, you know, kind of squarely into, just sort of checks another one of those boxes of the expectation for an indie slasher film. Is, listen, the folks that enjoy these films, and I'm one of them, we're not looking to sit there for like it's a Marvel movie for 3 hours, right? Exactly. This is a very different experience. We want you probably, you know, 3 acts. The setup. Something's gonna, you know, happen in the middle that's gonna maybe drive that story into the third act, and we're gonna, what the heck, you know, that's the third act, and it all comes together in 88, and, you know, an hour and a half, you're out the door, you're done with the film. I kind of love that with my short attention span. I appreciate movies like that. Do you write that way? Is it 88 pages? Well,
actually it is. You talk about the box checking, and this kind of movie is exactly what you want to do. Is you want to check all those boxes off because you want to get the biggest audience that you can. So you got to check all those boxes off, and it's not really an experimental kind of film. It is a fun film. That is what it's supposed to be. We got pretty girls, we got a great killer with a great backstory, and we've got lots of blood and action.
And one of the boxes that sort of goes, that it can cut one of two ways. In my experience, you know, just in that genre is nudity. How does that work? I mean, it can cut. It can be, wow, Or it can be more implied, like the classic Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
It was a little bit sexy, and it was a little romance in there, but it was more implied versus some more overt frontal nudity slasher films. I can't think of one right now. Or do you just sidestep all that?
Keep in mind that his sister's in the movie.
Yeah, my sister's in the movie, so she's definitely not doing a nude.
Okay.
I'm not going there. But definitely, if you're checking the boxes, nudity is one of those boxes that you're going to have to check for this particular type of genre. So definitely, we've got nudity, but we also have a lot of implied nudity too. You can instead of being trashy, it can be sexy. Okay, and sexy to me is probably better. You can have your nude scene, and then everything else can sort of just really sort of imply and be sexy.
Yeah, and and at the end of the day, listen, we're in this business I'm as an actor and you as a filmmaker because we have an artistic itch to scratch. However, it's not. I always tell my friends that are not in the business, there's a reason they call it show business. They don't call it show hobby.
Yeah.
It's not going to work so well for you if it's a hobby.
Yeah.
You want it to be a business, you got to make some money. And then if you take on a project like this without distribution, that means you have to make this project as well as you possibly can and then sell it. So it becomes a business to you. And then you have to also the considerations of is the nudity and how is that going to affect the final product that you want to reach people with. And it's a matter of taste. It's a matter of how it fits into the script. I guess I'm answering my own question. It's all these things are going into your writer's mind.
Oh, absolutely. I'm checking all the boxes and I'm making sure they are checked fully. Because as far as nudity, probably one of the most important things about a slasher movie, especially one that represents the 80s, is the gore factor. A lot of people will just throw some blood on the wall and somebody will get killed off screen. Like, that cannot work. If you want your movie to sell and you want people to like your slasher movie, then you've got to allow, like, half of our budget went to special effects.
Half the budget.
Half of the budget. It was right away half the budget. We were going to be putting it all in the special effects. Everything was going to be shown on screen. It was going to be gory and bloody, and that was going to be probably one of the most important things. Because when you're dealing with making a low-budget movie, you do have to prioritize because not everything can have as much importance as you want it to. But if you're checking those boxes, you know that you got to put a lot of effort into this box. If you want people, they don't even have to like your movie, but they'll watch it for the gore.
All right. Admittedly, I'm getting down into the weeds here a little bit, but I just want your opinion because this is your genre. And a discussion I had some time back with Benicia and he's in the film Wolfman, came out 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Their version when the Universal kind of rebooted Wolfman. And he did a lot of research for that film like he does all the time. But he suggested to me that I go back and watch some of the original Universal Studios. And recently I watched the Frankenstein, I think it's 1931, with Boris Karloff. And I will tell you, having not seen that movie, it was like new to me because I hadn't seen it since I was a teenager. First of all, the movie's 82 minutes.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's so incredibly politically incorrect, it would never get made again.
Yeah.
And thirdly, it is very depressing. Incredibly depressing. But people flocked to it. It was a gigantic hit. And but what I wanted to mention was the monster in that movie. By the way, an amazing performance,
right?
By the actor underneath all that makeup, Karloff, amazing actor. But no mask, just full view to the audience. Versus the Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, where you're got a mask on.
Yeah.
Lots of these take a movie in two different directions.
Absolutely. Well, the mask is the whole concept of the mask is being scared of what you don't know, what you can't see. And so what is behind that mask is a great tool to use throughout your movie because everybody's going to be wanting to see what's going on behind the mask.
So when you do a reveal, it's really important to
It's really important. In fact, all through the house there was a huge a conflict with me and the producers about the ending shot of whether or not we show his face or not. And we went round and round and round. And of course, I lost because they were the producers. But they heard me out, and I wanted to show his face. I wanted to show that he was a regular guy. I wanted to show that he wasn't this deformed, that you were mostly afraid in reality of the guy next door, of the regular person. So I wanted to show that. Also, it was sort of like, for me, paying sort of respects to Halloween, where when they took the mask off of Michael Myers and he was just a normal guy. And because I'm paying tribute to those movies, I wanted to do that. I wanted to follow through with that. But they didn't want to show the face. They wanted it to remain a mystery. I wanted to give that to the audience because I felt like they waited the whole movie and you're wondering what's behind the mask. I wanted to show them. But I lost that.
I appreciate it. I see it both ways, and as an actor that's in pre-production on a horror film myself, we have a character that wears a mask, and we're trying to figure that out. Even though we've got the script, we've got a script that's, I think, right on the nose. It's 92 pages.
Yeah,
and it offers a lot. But I just love to bounce this off of you, and I know there's so many people that appreciate this genre. And by the way, I think we're talking about multiple genres that are cousins, right? There's the slasher versus. And some horror movies are less horrific and more suspenseful.
Psychological, yeah.
Psychological.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that whole genre, which I deeply appreciate, everything from Halloween to Scream to full-on Hellraiser, which is, I guess that's way over in the slasher, I suppose.
Hellraiser, well, a lot of people consider it a slasher, but it's got a mystical, demon. Point. Maybe, more Exorcist, but a lot of people consider Pinhead a slasher icon.
Yeah. And the Saw, that's more horror and gore.
That's more slasher, but that would be considered torture.
Okay. And then what about something that's like Hitchcock-esque, where he's doing things with open and closed doors. You don't see the specific act.
It's definitely more psychological.
Psychological on film side. Yeah. How much can you combine and put circles around that? Like, I want to do a slasher, thriller, psychological. Can you? Obviously, you can do too much, but is that something that you're like, I want to? Is it better to pick a single theme and stick to it, or?
I would say when you're dealing with the independent market, it is, because it's when you're trying to sell it, and you're like, I'm going to sell you, I have a slasher for you. Well, that can be sold. There's an audience already willing, ready, and able for it. And when you start putting on other genres like psychological or family drama slasher, you could be, alienating some of that. They mean, like, I don't want to see that. I want to see a slasher.
Yeah. We learned a funny thing from Chad Michael Collins. He's a real handsome guy, actor. Hallmark has a strict ban on any scene in a bowling alley. Good thing for you to know as a director.
Okay, good. I'm going to file that away.
Are there things like that for you? Like, I just don't get a scene like in a bar like this. Like, I hate them. I won't ever do one.
There's a couple of things that I won't ever do. Is talking about like the next project.
Yeah.
After Death War 13. Well, even Death War 13, it came up, but I won't do a rape scene.
Okay.
I don't do rape scenes. If it is going to have a rape scene or something like that into it, it can be done off screen. I don't really think that that's something you have to show. That is just, for me, it's not fun anymore. And for me, about a slasher movie is all about not thinking about the realities of the world and thinking that Jason could exist or Michael Myers could exist. And for me, that's fun. And when you start bringing in things that aren't fun, or children getting abused or hurt or things like that, those are things I don't really like or want to do.
There's also a cost to the actor, too. We had Dominic Santana on, and he's played Suge Knight a whole bunch because he looks like him.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think about the damage that maybe I'm doing to myself as I get into this role and who I become. And I don't want to cause myself harm by doing it. He's like, I think I'm fine, but I'm aware that I'm in a dangerous place. And so I would imagine as a director, putting your sister on the floor in a rape scene, you are putting them through that emotional ride.
Yeah. And it's I mean, to me, that's just a whole different ball game. It's like if you're doing a movie about that, I guess that's different. But I'm not going to throw it into my mix of fun.
Right.
That's what I'm doing now.
Let me just pick up on the word fun, and what is in some theory of filmmaking, there for every moment that you're the audience is horrified, you need to kind of, to use the metaphor, take the boot off the throat of the audience and allow them to breathe, maybe even laugh for a second.
Yeah.
So that the experience of the horror is heightened, because if every scene was horrible, then you'd kind of fall into a dread.
Yeah, and there are movies like that. There are movies like that some people just absolutely love, but the bigger audience is going to go for it. Like Scream is a great example of dealing with horror and jokes.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business, or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69.
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
Love, but the bigger audience is going to go for it. Like Scream is a great example of dealing with horror and jokes, and it works beautifully, and it paid beautifully.
Yeah.
There's an audience for that. So definitely all through the house, we have a lot of funny stuff. We do some crazy funny stuff in it. It's all about having fun.
I love your analogy. I'm biased because I love the movie Scream.
Yeah.
And
it's a great movie.
I thought it was so unique and horrifying, but unique in the way it was presented. And it took me through the whole gamut of my emotions, that film.
Yeah.
How
You feel
great.
like you had an experience. And you allowed yourself to have it. Whereas something that's a bit more darker, you're going to try not to want to get too involved. You're not going to want to lose yourself in that experience unless you're that kind of person, which it's not my thing.
When you're trying to figure out what your thing is as an artist, how comfortable are you pushing outside of your zone? I mean, obviously you've always been a slasher kind of guy ever since I've known you, but would you make a rom-com because it's uncomfortable for you? Or, I mean, obviously you have the technical knowledge to do it, no doubt about it, but could that be fun? Is that just like, I'm Todd, I make these kind of movies, and that's what I do? Or
no, I mean, you definitely always want to step out of your comfort zone.
Okay.
And do some things. Like I said, Death War 13 is going to be all inside. The next movie is going to be all outside.
Yeah.
So I get excited about every new opportunity or pushing myself. But if like I said, if you're making a slasher movie, that's not the point to try and go out and try something new, unless you're Tarantino or unless you have that. Otherwise you got to stick with the genre.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to get so artistic that nobody gets your movie.
Yeah, but having a flair is fine.
Yeah.
Bringing a little different flair, a different angle, a different perspective, all that is great. And that just opens the door to millions and millions of different types of possibilities that you can do instead of just trying to do Halloween again.
Yeah.
We've already seen that.
And thus the quest for the next truly interesting, truly horrifying film.
Yeah.
And where you've got it in the hopper for you. Death Ward 13 is in pre-production.
Yeah.
And you probably can't talk much about that, but that's what gets you energized, right? As a filmmaker. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, I'm so excited about Death War 13 because it is so different than All Through the House. Where All Through the House, we can stop to have, like we talked about, humor and jokes and just and doing things, going a little out there, taking things a little. Death War 13 is, even though there is definitely humor, it comes from a different place. it more is from the characters. We're dealing with mental patients. There's lots of opportunities to do things that are going to get a laugh out of the audience. But it's definitely a grittier film. It's more of where All Through the House was sort of the 80s vibe. Death War 13 is more of the 70s vibe, which is different than the 80s.
Explain on that.
The 70s was such a great time because that's when we were really discovering. It was the discovery before the 80s, before it took it to that next level where people were directors and writers are being very experimental, doing things for the first time. It was a very exciting time, and we got some great movies. We're talking, grittier. It was more realism. The combination of humor hadn't really been thrown into the mix yet. So it was a different experience. I mean, there's humor there, but it's coming from a different place. It's coming from the characters more than it is from the scene, if that makes sense.
I think Freddy Krueger and Friday the 13th tapped into some of that humor.
Absolutely, absolutely. It began with Halloween, where you'd see some humor being injected with the characters, but it really began with Nightmare on Elm Street. Sort of really found their footing, and they then took it to the whole new level, to where they got overboard and they realized that there is a sweet spot for it, and you got to stay within that sweet spot. You step out of that sweet spot, then you become stand-up comedian Freddy Krueger, which is not the same as Freddy Krueger from the first three.
Yeah, with the one-liners and the jokes.
The one-liners and the jokes. Yeah, they were figuring it out, right?
You do owe it to the audience, though, if you're going to make more than one, to bang up against the edge of that sweet spot to try to create something different.
Exactly. You have to see how far you can go with it. How successful can you be if you do just a little bit more?
How much can you talk about the project after Death War 13? Can you get into it at all?
I can. Well, I'm sure I could talk about. I could talk about it a little bit. And it's part of one of the reasons why Death War 13 is at the stage that it's at right now. But we're developing what you would probably call a slasher universe.
Okay.
So this movie here is going to set the stage for some other movies to come. And the whole concept around that is getting the most bang for your buck when it comes to like advertising, building upon each movie. Each movie sort of sets up. It doesn't really set up the next one, but the advertisement does because it's the connection. So they don't. It doesn't work in the same way that you would think universes work in Marvel. It doesn't. It's not like that. But we have a very interesting, unique way that it's going to be working. And I'm very excited about it.
The editing process in a horror film, is it any different than a drama or a comedy? And the timing seems to me.
Well, I would think that there would be a lot of similarities with comedy and horror because you're always setting, just like you're setting up a joke, you're setting up a scare or, vice versa. So there's a lot of timing involved when you're editing. It's got to be done just right, otherwise you'll lose the scare or you'll lose the joke.
Have you ever found yourself in the editing room surprising yourself in, for example, changing the order of a scene and finding you had it in your mind one way as you shot it, and then you found it worked better a different way? Is that possible?
Oh, yeah, it's certainly possible, but it's also probably the bigger the best feeling, though, is when you're in the editing room and you're editing it together and it is exactly what you thought. Okay, that's the highlight. That's where it's like, yes, that worked. I see it. It's exactly what I wanted. But of course, sometimes it doesn't always happen that way.
And then you're problem solving.
And then you're problem solving, yeah. But sometimes it can work out. I mean, definitely there have been problems that have happened where I've had to think of something different, and it's like, wow, I was better than what I thought of originally. So that's great.
Who helps you do that? To go, you know what, Todd? That's perfect, but it's not good enough.
Well, it depends. I mean, ultimately, in the beginning, it's just me,
right? Because
I'm providing the director's cut. I'm giving the first viewing, and then the producers come in, and then that's when the back and forth happens. And the thing is at the end of the day, it's like I get very close to it. So for me, it's like something may be obvious, and to somebody else it may not be. So that is at that point though, that's when I'm really, really wanting to listen, because I want to know if what you're saying is going to be the same as what this other guy says later on. And if it is, well, then I definitely have some work to do.
And do you run a camera on your own films, or
no? I have somebody else do that.
Okay. And there's got to be
many hats.
Yeah. Well, it's a big distraction from some of the other things we talked about earlier. Is taking care of everything from lighting to the actor's performance, and hair, makeup, wardrobe, or the whole thing. You being attentive to that, but that relationship between your cinematographer and the final outcome is so incredibly important.
It's so important. You don't want to get involved with someone that you're not going to be able to work with that doesn't. You have to see the same vision. There's a lot of talking. You can't just say, "Oh, you're a great cinematographer. Let's do a film together." It's a very particular relationship. It's a very important relationship to the movie. And I worked with a great cinematographer. We got along great. We understood each other. I listened to him. He listened to me. And we both had the same objective. So that's really important. But I have thought, wow, I got to make sure that relationship is always on point.
You must have a zillion ideas for things that you would love to do, but you can't do even 10% of them.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, you could probably take different ideas and put them into other projects, but taking dead historical figures and supernaturally pulling them out of that time and putting them into your horror film, totally a thing you could do.
Yeah.
What are some of the ideas where you're like, I would love to, but I just don't know when I'll ever get to this?
Wow, I don't know. I mean, a lot of things that I've wanted to do, we're putting into the universe.
Okay.
And that is fulfilling a lot of the desires that I've had for this particular genre. I think I can get everything out with that. And we'll see what happens after that. I mean, I do have some other things going on, but it's funny. Like right now, it's with the fans and the people who follow me and want to hear from me. They want to hear about horror movies.
Yeah.
So that's what I talk about.
Sure.
So that's what I give them right now.
Any advice for young filmmakers?
I would say not to wait around for someone else to do it. A fairy godmother, a fairy godfather, or whatever can come along, but they're more likely to come along if you are trying to make your own dreams come true. And you can, and it's about starting off little. It's about doing that little short film and then building from there. I would have said to myself, we talked about what did you say to yourself? I would have said to myself from jump, do it yourself. Do what you've always been doing. Do it yourself. And that's what I've always been doing. And when I went back to that concept, that's when things started to happen. Because I'm not going to settle for being a grip. That's not what I want. So for me, it was about doing it myself.
Can you settle for being a grip and work from there?
No.
Not you, but somebody else.
I guess you can, but the thing is I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because what do people call you when you're a grip? They call you a grip.
Grip.
And that's in your mind. And I say, no, if you're a director, call yourself a director.
Yeah.
And direct.
Yeah.
You pick up a camera, pick up your iPhone, do a short film, direct. That's where you're going to get the experience that you need. You know how to grip, okay? Some people, maybe it's worked for them. I don't know a lot of people who said they started off as grips and they're now directors. But, my suggestion would be do it yourself.
That's that fearlessness that you're talking about, that when you drop the fear.
It depends. Like I said, there was a point where I made that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm no longer going to wait for anybody else to do it for me. I've wasted enough time already. I'm going to do it myself. And when I made that choice, that's the choice I wish I would have just made when I got here. Instead of seeing Hollywood as so big and gloomy and this and that, it's like, you know what? I should have been doing what I had always been doing before I got here.
And that is pushing yourself, shooting projects. And it seems to me the filmmakers I meet, the writer-directors like yourself, it's like a singer-songwriter. Right? Yeah. If you're going to be, how did James Taylor get to that? How did he get there? Well, he had to knew how to play an instrument and he knew how to write, and he decided to write the words, and that's the nuts and bolts of that business, and the nuts and bolts of what you do is writing.
Yeah.
It's sort of the foundation. And that's the ultimate control, isn't it? It's like, hold on. I wrote these words at the least. Someone else can direct it if you want to buy the script from me. But better yet, if I've got the time, and we were talking about Taylor Sheridan, who went from actor to writer. He took that route, incredible route, right? Because he said he wanted more control over his own career, his own life. So he says, okay, put the acting totally on the sideline because he was writing words that people were really liking.
Yeah.
He wrote Sicario and blew everybody's mind.
Yeah.
And he says on. And now he's writing and saying, by the way, come hell or high water and Wind River. He directed. I think that's his first directional. And so you sort of jumped past go a little bit on smaller projects, but I think there's wisdom for young filmmakers out there, because it's one thing to you don't direct other people's work. It's all your original work.
Yeah.
And so there's the chops, right? And where did you learn how to write? Where does that come from?
Wow, writing started back when I was in high school, when I wanted to do my own plays. And I started writing. I just started writing them, and I realized that I had a love for that I loved creating characters and situations and telling stories. It was just it was my passion.
When you're back there at Benicia High and you're sitting in class, our era of high school wasn't super demanding on us. You could have a passion. In a regular 6-period day, how much time were you spent completely not present in the classroom, thinking and working on what you would become?
I would say that most of the time.
Right.
And that was probably one of my biggest problems was that I spent most of my time. As soon as I was almost done doing one play, I was already thinking about the next one, and I was consumed with it. I would say it was everything to me, and I was very proud of what happened when I was in high school.
Yeah,
where drama was just a small little thing, and when we were in drama, it was a big thing.
Yeah,
it was a big thing, and a lot of it, to credit to Mr. Heller, our drama teacher, who was wonderful at not censoring us, which was exactly what I needed.
Yeah, can you imagine doing some of the things you did now? What do you mean there's an independent kid running around doing horror films in the
could you do it today? I don't know, but I did some pretty controversial stuff when I was in school. But that was my mindset. It was about, what's the point of doing a play if you're not going to get the audience, if you don't have an audience to come see it? So I wasn't always just about doing the play. It was about how I was going to get people to come see it.
Well, let me quote you from earlier in this conversation. You're saying you're writing from the point of view, saying and thinking with the end in mind, which is think with the end. Was it Peter or Stephen Covey, right? The Harvard Business School guy who wrote all the books on business success, and he says, begin with the end in mind.
Yeah.
You said, did my audience have the experience? And you hadn't even started to write anything yet.
Yeah.
And you're already saying, well, as soon as I put my pen on this paper or put my fingers on the keyboard, I want to make sure that my audience has had quite a considerable experience.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely – I wrote this down, so I want to remember that. Did they have an experience? And if I'm writing – I imagine you say to yourself, wow, I'm 30 pages into this, and I'm not sure the experience is all that great. I better, as I head into the second act, I better either go back or figure this thing out right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Especially with something like All Through the House, where low budget, and fun. The word fun is an important word. It's important because you can get so much traction out of it by making something fun, because it is, when it comes down to it, it's entertainment. And when I'm doing a slasher movie, I'm not necessarily trying to change the world or have people come away with some deep, profound understanding of something. I want people to come away with a smile.
Yeah.
So every act, it's that you want to make sure if you're hitting you're checking all those boxes. And you check all those boxes, and people are going to have a good time.
Yeah, Pete asked you earlier, like, for the young director to be, and I'm thinking now, like, it's almost graduation season. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to press pause. You should be going back to Benicia High and giving these lessons to those kids that are there that were you.
Oh.
I'm going to hold you to that because
Okay.
we can absolutely make time. I go back every year.
Oh, really?
And they have things that are happening in that way to really, because, you know, there was no you in front of you back then, and we really should change that. So for those parents that are like, oh my God, my kid first off is a horror movie freak, and he, you know, like there's you and there's Adam Goldberg and these other people that have taken what they've done and it's what they still do.
Yeah.
So how does a parent support a kid who's got this impossible dream? And all dreams are impossible, but
yeah, right.
you know, like, how do you calm them down and give them something that they can hold on to and go, okay, if they're really serious about this, I can put this in front of them, and it's not too big of a leap for anybody.
Well, I certainly wouldn't try to stop somebody. I think that a lot of people who want to be actors, which is probably one of the biggest ones, you know,
Right.
people want to be famous actors. It's going to have to come down to how much passion and drive that they have. Eventually, a lot of people who want to become actors, especially when I went to school, everybody wanted to become an actor, wanted to move to Hollywood and become an
Sure.
actor, you know, and that sort of just fizzled out for just about everybody. So, but if somebody has the passion, that you have to support it. You have to go along with them on that ride.
Yeah.
And let them find out for themselves. Because anything is possible.
Yeah.
Anything is possible. So you can't say that, you know, just because it's, you know, unattainable, you know, but I guess if fame is a motivation, that might be a little cause for pause.
Okay. I want to be famous.
Yeah.
As opposed to the kid that's like, I have to tell these stories.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to be famous, because being famous and getting rich is going to only allow you to be able to do more of what you want to do. So it's certainly, I wouldn't say, but it shouldn't be the only motivating factor. Right. It's the desire, like I did plays. It wasn't about fame or money. I did it all for free because that was the drive. That was what I had to do. You know? So that should definitely, you know, be the driving force.
And I can speak firsthand as an actor who over the span of 30 years has worked on big budget films, and equally I've worked on a low budget, I mean virtually about no budget. Yeah. And when but the process is the same. There's a camera, there's a director working with you as an actor, there's me as an actor and a group of us that have got these lines in our head, and we have got action to perform and marks to hit, and that doesn't change no matter the budget. The common thread is passion. It really is, and
absolutely.
That's from budget, from the entire scale of budget, from big budget to no budget, people that are there. Because when you're working on a very, very low budget project, for those of you that are thinking about getting into the business in front or behind the camera, if there's a very, very low budget, it's actually much harder work because the conditions and the environment and the situation are just frankly more difficult.
Absolutely.
You just don't have the resources to have a lunch on the set or any kind of a craft service or any kind of a comfortable place. You might have to bring your own literally bring your own folding chair if you want to take a seat. Otherwise, you're going to stand around all day or sit on the ground.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. And so why in the world would you do it? You've got to really want to be there. You really have to have a desire and a passion. And the will is beyond desire. The will says, I'm actually going to drive an hour and a half to get to the location where it's going to be hot all day. And I got my lawn chair in the back, and I brought a cooler of water for myself. It sounds insane, right? But that's how we make low budget. It's how it happens.
Yeah. And you never know what you could be concocting. You know, it could be that this is your break, that this is what is someone's going to see. And in today's world, we have so many more opportunities to get your work out there. They didn't have when I always think, gosh, if they had YouTube when I was in high school, like wow, what could I have done? Built an audience right there.
Do you think that Todd, the director, has an audience, or does your genre bring an audience that you're able to capture?
Well, I think that it's both, but
Okay.
I think that for most of it is that my genre brings an audience.
Right.
So it's a very dedicated
Yeah.
group of individuals that are slasher fans. And then that it's not just them, but that also tapers off into the everyday person who just feels like watching a slasher movie here and there, and it's going to be interested in when they see the trailer or the poster or whatever it is that you're selling. So it has the opportunity to go beyond, to transcend beyond the people who are already going to watch it.
And I'm glad you mentioned the word poster. When I saw online the poster for All Through the House, it is fantastic.
Yeah.
And this is no small thing. It is of no small importance, and the quality of it is of no small. It's no accident. Tell us about the work that went into the crafting that poster.
Well, we had some other posters at first, but that came along when we were doing for me as a director. One of the most, I have like my checkbox as we talked about, and there are certain things that we check off, and one of the main things is the killer. Like the killer is our star. We don't have a star, so our killer is the star, and we have to market the movie around that. But in order to do that, we have to have a great looking killer. So I had all kinds of combinations and designs for a mask, and we did a photo shoot with our actor to find the right combination, the right colors, and we did all kinds of stuff on the spot, and it landed on this particular look. And I knew then, after all months and months and months of searching and looking, that this was the one. This was the look that we were going to be able to market, that people were going to be able to look at that and say, I've never seen that killer before. What's going on here? What's going on with him? So the poster, instead of having some Christmassy, this house, whatever, it was going to be him. He's our star. And that's how we market it. And we had somebody do some work on that photo. I said, this is the photo, the tilt of the head, the eyes, the placement of the shears. It's all working. It's all there. And so it was that simple. It didn't take a lot of designing. It just took having a solid concept that people could resonate with as soon as they saw it.
And, it's a visceral thing. You don't have to be in the film business to know. You look at a movie poster, and it either, your eyes just move right off of it, or they stick to it.
Yeah.
It's the dangest thing. And with yours, and it's, by the way, it's such an important thing, and you just absolutely nailed it. So, and I'm glad to hear the background on that and all the care. People should understand the care that goes into these things.
Yeah. There was a lot of thought, and it's not just, you can't just put a mask on someone and say that they're a killer. We have an amazing actor behind our mask, Lito Velasco, who is he's just incredible, and he's perfect at miming, but he can do all these body kind of transformations, but he's an actor, and so he was really able to bring the mask to life. I'm not a fan of a guy just standing there in a mask. I want to see it all through his body. I want to see the whole character coming through and the eyes. One of the most important things. But every little detail of what he did when he's on screen, he's performing. And it definitely comes through. And it definitely checks that box off as far as having our killer, which is one of the most important things.
First off, I can never wipe the smile on my face when we get to hang out because I just love it. I love what you're doing. I love that you get to do this. And I'm just, if you have an audience of one, it's me. And I just love everything that you do, Todd. So let me just say thank you, and I love you. And
absolutely.
It's so fantastic.
Isn't it great?
It is super,
I think
super
it's
wonderful.
so great to think that we have this history. I mean, that you knew me from high school, and we can talk about these things.
Elementary school.
So much, right.
Really, you know?
So it's so much fun. It's it's a joy.
And then the last question I have for you is do you have to direct everything? Are you like, hold on, Table is not set right. Thanksgiving turkey must be slightly rotated. I need some mist on this thing. Like, do you have to direct everything?
Well, it's not that I don't have to direct everything, but I certainly have to approve everything.
Okay.
And I'll certainly go into with just about everything and make little minor this and that. Like if the flowers just aren't exactly. I know ahead of time that something's going to happen there. You know what I mean? I know these things, so my mind is always snowballing when I see certain things. And so I will definitely go through and tweak things, but I definitely want to give everybody a chance to shine because at the end of the day, it's not just my film. It's all of our film. We're all working together. I couldn't do it without all these people, and I'm giving these positions because I trust them. Yeah. So it's not like me going in and tearing down anything that anybody has done. It's all about everybody getting on board with the same vision.
No, I like what you're saying, Todd. As an actor myself, I appreciate that you care deeply about the outcome of, at the end of the day, you might have 40, 50, 60 or more people involved with the production, actors, grips, people that are getting mic'd up, the sound department, hair and makeup, all of that. But at the end of the day, it's the director's responsibility, sole responsibility for the ultimate outcome and the quality in the film, the look of the film, all of that. And but you embrace that. You take that on. And That's absolutely great. And as an actor, all I can hope for in my director is that he cares, and that in my judgment, the director's job is to position me for success. He can't perform for me. That's not his job. But that, as we've seen through historically in Hollywood, some of the great teams like Scorsese and De Niro, who've given us, I cannot speak for myself, but really given the world so much enjoyment. That is very, very special. I know that you work with your sister all the time, and I look forward to your next film and seeing how, and looking for that enjoyment and seeing your sister on screen again. I appreciate that.
Yeah, she's going to be amazing.
Well, Todd,
and we have some great surprises for that.
Good.
I can't wait to talk about
Yes,
about
we'll have to have you guys back on.
Yeah.
Closer to Benicia. Thanks again, Todd.
Oh, you're welcome.